Go, 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 go. That's right. Good morning, America. How are you doing? Good morning from the Amazing Grace Sports Network. I am Clay Morris, and football is over. So there is no NFL Friday morning preview, which this used to be, which is good and bad. It is good because the NFL is composed or comprised of uh, 32 teams with over 50 players on each team, not including the owners and the coaches and the other personnel. So there's always a lot to talk about when we talk about the NFL because there is so many people involved. And we're not even talking about the cities. We could just talk about the cities that, how they feel about these teams and, their emotions and thoughts and attitude and personality. So you add all that together and you have a never-ending 24-hour, 7 story to talk about when we talk about football. Okay? But the good is, because there is no NFL football, it gives us an opportunity to talk about other sports and subjects related to sports. Today, we are going to cover or talk about such things as birthdays. Birthdays. Yes, birthdays. Today is February 17th in the 2023 year of our Lord Jesus Christ. And on February 17th, 1936, on St. Simon's Island, which is an island located off the coast of Georgia. It's one of those islands, with those Gula Islands, where people speak a Gula language, from the African slaves that came over in Africa back in the 1700s. They separated from the rest of and nobody knew they were there. And so they developed their own language and their own culture and their own personality, so to speak. St. Simon Island, Georgia. Okay. One James Nathaniel Brown, also known as Jim Brown, considered to be the greatest running back in the history of the NFL, and one of the greatest athletes the world has ever known. He was born February 17th. Also on February 17th, 1963, in Brooklyn, New York, one Michael Jeffrey Jordan, considered one of the greatest basketball players, if not the greatest basketball player ever to play in the NBA, was born February 17th. Now, at age 8, Jim went to Simon's Island for Manhasset, Long Island, New York. That's right. He goes to New York. And at Manhasset High School, he earns 13 letters: basketball, football, lacrosse, and track. Jim Brown averages 38 points a game in basketball. He's that man in high school, the jock. And after high school, he attends Syracuse University. As a sophomore at Syracuse, 1954, Brown was the second leading rusher on the team, as he rushed for 676 yards, which is 5.2 yards a carry. In his senior year in 1956, he was a consensus All-American. He finished 5th in the Heisman Trophy voting. How does that happen? It's anybody's guess. Jim Brown finished 5th in the Heisman voting, okay, behind Paul Hornung, Johnny Majors, Tom McDonald, and Jerry Tubbs. All 4 of those together wouldn't have the career that Jim Brown had. But, we're talking about college, right? And this kind of fact is, it's just like who picks the national championship anyway. Brown should have won the Heisman. That's another story. But he set records at Syracuse. He had the highest season rush average, 6.2, the most rushing touchdowns in a single game, 6. He ran for 986 yards, third most in the country at that time, despite Syracuse playing only 8 games. And he scored 14 touchdowns. In the regular season finale, a 61-7 rout of Colgate University, he rushed for 197 yards, scored 6 touchdowns, and kicked 7 extra points. A school record. So he set a school record of 43 points. Then in the Cotton Bowl, which was later on that year, Syracuse went down to Texas, encountered all kinds of problems. Yet still, he rushed for 132 yards, scored 3 touchdowns, and kicked 3 extra points. But it was a block extra point after the 3rd touchdown that turned out to be the difference. And TCU, yes, the very same TCU that got crushed in this year's college national championship game, football championship game. Yes, they got crushed by Georgia. Yeah, that very same TCU managed to win the game 28-27. Even more impressive than Brown's football career at Syracuse was his multi-sport career as an athlete. See, in addition to football, he was an accomplished basketball, track, and especially lacrosse player at Syracuse. In 1955, he finished in 5th place in the national championship decathlon. That means he could have went to the 56 Olympics with Bill Russell. Remember that name, it's going to come up. As a decathlon, he was 5th. Had he tried a little bit harder, maybe he would have been 2nd or 3rd, but he was a decathlete athlete. He was a decathlon athlete, okay? In his senior year, he was named first team All-American in lacrosse. He had 43 goals in 10 games to rank 2nd in scoring nationally. Brown was so dominant in the game of lacrosse that the rules were changed. Happens all the time, happened with Will Chamberlain. Yeah, the rules were changed. It required requiring a lacrosse player to keep their stick in constant motion when carrying the ball instead of holding it close to his body. How that affected anybody, I have no idea. But apparently, he was so good at what he was doing, they had to change the rule. And in the JMA Wireless Dome of Syracuse University, which is the sports dome, there's an 800 square foot tapestry depicting Brown in football and in lacrosse uniforms with the words, "Greatest player ever." Brown was taken in the first round of the 1957 draft by the Cleveland Browns with the 6th overall selection. Now, he finished 5th in the Heisman, and he was the 6th player taken in the, I'm not even going to go over the names of the players who were taken for him because you only going to know one, Paul Hornung, who had a decent career at Green Bay, but not the career that Jim Brown would have. It makes you wonder what the other 5 teams were thinking. More than likely, they were not thinking very well. Because in the 9th game of his rookie season against the Los Angeles Rams, a very good team, he rushed for 237 yards, setting an NFL single-game record which stood unsurpassed for 14 years, and a rookie record that remains after 40 years. Brown broke the single-season rushing record in 1958 when he gained 1,527 yards in a 12-game season. This is impossible. Anyway, he shattered the other mark of 1,100 yards that was set by Steve Van Buren in 1949, and everyone thought that was going to last forever. In his MVP season, Brown led all players with a staggering 17 touchdowns scored, beating his nearest rival, who was Raymond Berry of the Baltimore Colts, who only had 8, I believe, at the time. So he beat him by 9. Okay, yeah. And after 9 years in the NFL, he departed as the NFL's record holder in both single-season rushing yards, career rushing yards. Okay, single season was 1,863. Career was 1,312, as well as the all-time leader in rushing touchdowns, which was 106. And total touchdowns, 126. All-purpose yards, 15,549. The guy led in everything, but he only played 8 years. 12,000 yards in 8 years. This is amazing. Amazing. Otherworldly. And people want to say, no. This guy was that guy. Now let's move on to the other person who was born in on February 17th. Except it was in 1963. One Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Yeah, so we have this guy. Now we have this guy. Michael Jordan. I don't have to go over as much about Michael Jordan. Except anybody under 25 thinks of Michael Jordan as the owner of the Charlotte Hornets. And I believe he owns a NASCAR racing company. They know him as that, Michael Jordan, and also the guy who makes millions of dollars from Nike because of his Jordan shoes, Air Jordans. They know him as that guy. But those of us over 25 know him as somebody else. Michael Jeffrey Jordan, the basketball player. That's right. Michael Jordan, the basketball player. He terrorized the league. The guy came in, his third pick in the draft, and I didn't really, I'm fully grown person at that time. He comes in there. I'm 20-something at the time, and I saw Michael Jordan as he played in the College National Championship when they beat Georgetown. And good player. It's hard to tell what a player is going to be like when they come into the NBA, but I did not suspect this guy would be that guy who became Michael Jordan in the NBA, what I saw then. Michael Jordan terrorized the NBA for much of his time when he played. He went to North Carolina, won the NCAA championship with Dean Smith as his coach. Then would go on to win 6 NBA championships, led the league in scoring in 10 of his 15 years that he played. He played 15 years in the NBA, led it 10 times, did it consecutively 7 times. But those were not that is not what stood out to me about Michael Jeffrey Jordan when he played in the NBA. His accomplishments did not stand out to me. What stood out to me was Michael Jordan played how Jim Brown ran the ball with unrestrained ferocity. Those of us who have played sports, football, basketball, when we looked at Michael Jordan, we saw something different. This guy was burning hot. He was burning. I mean, you could see an aura of like burn, like the sun, like an aura, like that thing was burning off Michael Jordan when he played. Every second he played as if it was his last. On defense, offense, and transition, no matter how he played the game, he played it like something was burning him. The same way that Jim Brown ran the ball. Strange. Both of them were unapologetically. They didn't apologize for being vicious. They were vicious players. They took no prisoners. Jordan, not even his teammates could escape exempt from his wrath. He ran them into the ground. The practices, the Chicago Bulls practices, were all out wars until Jordan won. Who does that? Brown wanted to make those who tried to tackle him feel pain. Michael Jordan wanted to make those who tried to play against him, who stood in his way, he wanted to make them feel pain. And he would drive that mental stake in the brain hard and let them know that he had beat them. Jordan. Anybody who stood in his way felt pain. Well, what can we say about these two? I think these two are alike in so many ways, even though we're talking about basketball and basketball. Mentally and physically, they are over the top. They have to win. They're not going to apologize for anything they have to do in order to win. They will ride you down until you get on board, mentally and physically. They are tyrants. Jim Brown and Michael Jordan, though not related and separated by a number of years, they are very much alike. February 17th, the will to win is off the charts. They have to win at all costs, and anyone who stands in their way is in trouble. Now, as I mentioned these two, I would be remiss. It would be a travesty if I didn't throw in one more name, a name that I already mentioned. One, William Fenton Russell, the greatest winner the modern sports world in the 20th century has ever known. This man This man was probably tougher than either Jim Brown or Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Now you got to take this, you're saying impossible. Impossible? You say impossible? This one, Mr. Bill Russell, who was born on February, well, he wasn't born on February 17th. He was born on February 12th, within 5 days. Some of the three of the greatest athletes that we know of in the 20th century were born within 5 days on this particular day, February 17th. He was born February 12th. February 12th, in the year of 1934. Jordan's will to win is legendary, but it pales in comparison to Russell's. He won 2 NCAA championships back to back. One year his year went undefeated. His first year they lost 1. That's his junior year. They lost 1 game, and then his next year they wouldn't lose at all. This was a team that was not highly talented. We're talking about the San Francisco Dons, University of San Francisco. They were called the Dons. Not much is known about them before, and not much is known to talk about after Bill Russell. But this one guy took them to the NCAA championship finals and won it consecutive years. No, Jordan didn't do that. Okay. Then he wins an Olympic medal. I'm not sure Jordan did that. But anyway, there's politics involved in there. And in 13 seasons as an NBA professional, Bill Russell wins the NBA championship 11 times. Now, you can win it 1, 2, 3, 4 times, but the will to keep winning, remember now, Jordan had to take 3 years off. He took a couple of years off to go play baseball in order to channel himself down. He had to bring himself down, wind himself back. It was overwhelming him. The will to win, the will to keep going, even after you have won multiple times. When he won 3 times, he had to take time off. Bill Russell won 8 years in a row, won the NBA championship 8 years in a row, 8 years in a row. Guys, this is when you get off, you're not off, okay? When you have a summer off, you're not off. You're thinking about what you're going to do the next season. We are talking about winning, and thinking about winning when you wake up, thinking about winning when you're eating breakfast, lunch, dinner, and going to sleep. That was Bill Russell. Bill Russell was a hard guy to like, much less get along with. I met him. I think I did a series. I did a show on that. I got to pull my hair back there. Yeah. Nice guy and everything, but you could feel his presence. even before you walked up on him, you could feel Bill Russell's presence. And so he was very tough on his teammates. They loved him, but he was a tough guy to get along with. He demanded 2 things. He demanded excellence and honesty, and those are 2 things that most human beings are not accustomed to in ourselves, even in our quiet time. We're not accustomed to excellence out of ourselves or honesty. We lie to ourselves all the time about who we are and what we're doing and what we're trying to do. Something Bill Russell, and I don't think Michael Jordan or Jim Brown had a problem with. Excellence and honesty. So even in birthdays, we can learn something in the world of sports. Remember now, take all this with a grain of salt. The Major Great Sports Network, we celebrate the passion, the spirituality, and the unity of sports. And in all 3 of these personalities, you encompass those 3 things. Passion, spirituality, and unity. They unify. They make people passionate, and they have a spirituality about them. So us human beings, if you want to get better at something, anything in life, the blueprint is always right there in front of your face. Honesty and excellence, or should I say excellence and honesty if we do it alphabetically. Excellence, try to get the best out of yourself and be honest. What are you doing and what are you not doing? So these 3 guys born within 5 days of one another dominate their sports. And I don't know what that means cosmically, I don't understand how it could happen, how this how this is, well, it's how it is. Okay. But if you have a son or a daughter born on February 12th and in between February 17th, get ready for a wild ride. I guarantee you. From what I can see, you're going to have a wild ride, but enjoy it. You have a cyclone for a child. Something's going to happen. And with that, I bid adios, adieu. Arrivederci, auf Wiedersehen, au revoir, and vaya con Dios. Goodbye, everybody. It's been my pleasure to be your host on Friday today, February 17th, 2023.